Again, it's this storytelling is to try and shake up the framework and of even trying to understand the water that we're all swimming in that we can't even see. It's like, how do I know? I know a lot of people who start watching the show and then have to Google the war in Vietnam. You know what I mean? And it's like, fine, do it. Yeah. Fine, do it. Remind yourself what happened, and then think about why do I know what I know, and is it all through a bunch of movies through the 80s, or when that big chunk of movies that kind of happened? Is it through that, and what's that perspective?
Robert, I'm curious, because this is based on a book, of course. What did you discover first? Was it the novel? Was it scripts? And what was it that intrigued you so much to sign on as EP and actor?
Yeah, aware of the novel. Everyone said you got to read this, and then once I knew director Park was involved, and then it's so crazy. You guys have such history, and then Don banged out these just incredible scripts. And then Susan just said, "You're doing this." And I said, "Yes, dear." And I'm a better man for it, as usual.
What was it like for you, Don, to have, you say director Park Chan-wook, involved, and how did the partnership work itself out?
Well, I mean, I had written a script with him before, a feature script, which hasn't been made, but actually it looks like it's going to be made this fall in Korea. So I'm just writing the subtitles now. But that's what I mean. But it was never made. But we loved working together, and then when they talked to me about the book, I thought I couldn't see it, to be honest, because the tone is so tricky for the book, and the material is challenging. And then they mentioned his name, and I thought, oh, now I can see it. Because I felt that was really, his style, his humor, his sort of cheekiness is all quite similar to the tone of the book. And I thought, okay, I can see that show. I can write that, so.
Hoa, my understanding, I know you've talked about this, but maybe this crowd hasn't heard the story. This was quite a long audition process for you. I think it was 8 months long. First of all, why? And how did you keep up your stamina and not lose hope and faith that this was going to work out?
Oh, I definitely lost hope. And I was a shell by the end of the audition process. I received the audition notice January of 2022, and I just put in the tape like I always do. And 2 weeks after that, they were interested. So I was like, oh my God, you guys care? And then after that, it was just like a series of callbacks and Zoom auditions and re-auditioning different scenes every month after that. And then by July, I was flown to Korea to meet director Park in person and to do it for him and then to have dinner with him. And it felt like we were on a date, just getting to know each other, working on the script and everything like that. And then lo and behold, I didn't realize that there would be another callback a month after that. And this was August by this time. And so then they flew me to LA, and that's when I met you, Don, for the first time.
In person? In
person, yeah, because we'd met many times over Zoom and I'd lost count. But yeah, to answer your question, it was, 8 months of just constant auditioning, keeping positive, making sure that I wasn't going insane, and sleeping, because I let go of this plenty of times before I realized that maybe it was for me. Yeah.
How many months into the 8 were you like, I think I'm going to get it?
You know what? I think it was like the second callback that I was like, this is mine. And then it was like second or third callback, I was like, if they want me this, like, you know, I'm here, they must want me. And so I was really confident going into that. And I think it was after that third callback, I got this long email of notes telling me why it wasn't mine yet. And that's when I started to question and doubt and become, I guess, really insecure and just started the imposter syndrome of wondering if I was good enough and if I was...
you started becoming the captain.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I wasn't before, and through just pure torture you guys made me.
Again, the
who you guys saw on screen
Right, it was all for the part.
Yeah. 2 months wasn't enough. We needed to see you really capture those moments in the last episode through 5 more months.
Yes.
It's true for this episode when we were shooting it, he kept saying, well, it's nothing compared to the audition process.
I was prepared.
I've done this.
Can I add something to that? I do think that for a production to be looking for actors who are not usually in the ready talent pool. That I really do appreciate production, HBO, and everyone who basically put the time and the effort in to search worldwide for our cast. You know what I mean? Because it takes money and it takes time and it takes effort. And yes, it was 8 months, but it's like you want to get it right, and you need to reach out to people and reach out to places that you don't usually reach out to, because we all exist. Sometimes you just need a little bit more effort to be found. So
and the fact is there were a lot of good actors in the Vietnamese community. We had casting agents in basically any city that had any sizable Vietnamese diaspora contingent, and so there were a lot of other people. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just we watched him over and over again.
Right. You had competition. Sandra, you're such a linchpin in this, and you do such a great job. What would you say this role, this character, maybe allowed you to do that you hadn't been able to do before? Were there shades of it that were particularly exciting for that reason?
honestly, it's straight acting wise, no. Do you know what I mean? Just straight acting, the acting job. No.
I was going to say no. I was going to say no for you if you didn't say
Yeah. But straight acting wise, no. But the entire experience, I think is such a special one. Again, because it's, you know, the subject matter and the majority of the cast, and I think a lot of the power and the meaning behind the piece feels different and felt different in what I could add and support in that kind of way.
For me, there's a sensual quality to the performance that I.
You don't get to do that.
I really appreciated that.
Oh, good. good. Yeah.
You should see these deep fakes I just made up of her.
Robert, whose idea was it to have you play multiple characters? And if it was not your idea, what was your reaction when you first heard the idea?
I think it came from Park and Don, and yeah.
And so what did they say, like on a phone call, this is an idea we've had? Remember, you know, and then...
Yeah, but it's funny too. I mean, honestly, I think for Sandra and I, if I can speak for us as a single unit, I adore you now, my goddess of screen and stage, having just seen her at the Atlantic and the Welkin with us last night. I felt like we were kind of here as just proponents of what Don had rendered and what Park's vision would prove out to be, and to put the focus on this overly humble, extremely talented guy. And I felt like we were kind of like Den Mother, and yeah, of course I got to have a ball and do all these different character stuff, but I honestly felt like I was just kind of showing up to see if I could survive it. And then watching what the captain was put through, I was like, oh, I got it pretty easy. I'm just in special effects makeup every day.
Was it? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that. Well, I think we came to you with that already.
Yeah.
We had the idea.
It was exciting.
We were talking about how there's this sort of repeated pattern in the book of the captain has these relationships with these older white men who are mentors, but also antagonists. And they're so almost repetitive, and we thought, but if we make it one actor, then it, like Peter Sellers in Dr. Strangelove, so then it becomes thematic, and it becomes, what is it about these men? Why is it about the captain and his psychology that he keeps encountering these men? And I will say that we came with that idea, but Robert was really instrumental in the finale that you saw and how it's resolved and how it sort of comes together with the father. And I think talking with Robert was really important about how we how it paid off, I think.
Yeah, there was a discovery process
yeah.
along the way, right?
Yeah.
What did it mean logistically? I'm not talking about the scene earlier in the season where there's 4 of you like at a restaurant booth.
Yeah.
But there's a scene at a garden party where one of your characters appears and then another of your characters appears. Were there days where you had to be multiple people on a one day?
Yeah, which is my idea of a good time. And you know how we are. I mean, we're all multiple people in the course of a day. So that the steakhouse scene was so easy, and that's the thing about Director Park. When you find great directors, the hard stuff is easy, and the easy stuff is a blast, even though it's all hard. So those 2 days were so efficient.
Yeah.
They were tough on him because he had to keep doing the scene over and over again while I was clowning around. And then the day at the garden party, I just remember, because, you know, the professor's lighting him up. And then I get to also be Mr. Jingo. And I was like, it was a perfect day.
Wow. Is there a most comfortable and least comfortable of all of them? Was there one where you were like, this is just too much?
No, I liked all of it. The missus said that at least the director was kind of sexy, as opposed to these other guys they're all just creeps. But I think that, you know, Claude really has, within the captain's arc, Claude kind of follows. And I think Claude comes to admire the captain so much that it transcends even his neocon directive to destroy communism at all costs. And, you know, he's a trauma case himself, so I think he understands all that. So, yeah.
I mean, I had most of my scenes with Claude.
You like the Claude days?
Yeah. I mean,
He's
he was
sexy too, I would say.
But by the way, day 1 that I shot with him, I'm doing this scene where Claude is walking a dog and he's in disguise, right? And I'm looking at him and I'm kind of like, the contact keeps popping out of his eye, and I was just like, this guy is just, it was like Clockwork Orange. I was like, this is the most, it was just crazy, bro.
Yeah. I
And
was
then you
staring
went and
into
shot
the sun
5 other difficult scenes after that.
Oh, man.
Oh, now I want to see your eyes. Okay.
Oh no, yeah, they're there. They're in there. It's all good. Yeah. But no, I just remembered that was the 4th day of filming when I got to work with both of you at the same time, because I had my scene with you in the car, and then I turn around and then it's Claude.
Yep.
And that was the 4th day of filming, and I was still trying to just, you know, hold my nerves together, let alone, you know, be in this scene with two, you know, of these actors. But yeah, I remembered you walked up to me and you just like had this cheeky grin on your, you know, face, and then you walked up to me and you put your hand on my shoulder and you were like, brother, let's just have a blast, and, you know, we're gonna just screw this stuff together, like in the way that we're gonna have fun together. But it was like
that dog was a goddamn problem.
But
why won't it just fucking shit where I wanted to?
Did they have like a dog on standby in case that the dog couldn't perform?
Backup dog? I don't know.
You should
Don one of those performing without a
cutting
canine
back
net.
too. Yeah.
You should think about that for the next time. Get a backup dog. Well, I'd be curious to know for you as someone who is of Vietnamese descent but was raised in Australia, how was this show and this experience educational for you?
So I grew up in Australia, like, I guess with, you know, not very many Asian friends, let alone Vietnamese friends. And I guess I always saw myself as being Australian. And it's funny because in Australia, when you talk about yourself, you're just Australian, you know, you don't really have subsects of identities and stuff like that. You're just Australian, and that's what was reflected to me back in the media and things like that. And then, you know, I related to that part of my culture a lot, but being Vietnamese was just very strange to me because that's obviously what my parents were, and I never really understood what it was to escape trauma, a conflict, and they would tell me stories of that nature and stuff like that, but I just never thought that was a part of me. It was more a part of them. And so when you do a project like this that gets to tell all these aspects of everything that your parents used to tell you, like, you know, when they used to be like back in my day and all that stuff, and you're just like, yeah, but it's not me. when you get to do something like this and experience and learn about and research and actually embody a lot of this trauma that they've went through, that they've tried to describe to you, you start to appreciate that a lot of these stories have been really told from a narrative like perspective, like a narrow perspective, like a Western-centric perspective about the Vietnam War. And a lot of these stories that my parents have had have largely been dismissed. So it's made me appreciate that their trauma and their stories are just as significant as the stories that we've always been taught about the Vietnam War.
And you got to watch how much of this series with your parents?
I've only seen the first, I saw the premiere episode.
And I sat right next to you. And it was heavy duty, man.
And especially the final minutes of episode 1, you know, we're witnessing the fall of Saigon, and I just sort of turned to my parents, and I was watching them more than I was watching the screen at this point, and I just saw this sort of tear rolling out of the corner of my mum's eye, because for them, it was real, and this was a real moment in a part of their lives. They were in Saigon when they watched this happen on TV, and to know that what we were recreating, still had an impact on them all these years later, it was special, and it made us, at least me, feel like we were doing this justice, we were telling this accurately, and that we were doing so much service to this part of the history that so many people in the Vietnamese diaspora have felt like has been insignificant, at least in the Western media.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sandra, from your point of view, I can only imagine how many times you've been on a set, one of very few Asian artists or the only Asian member of the cast.
Yeah.
What was it then
or
like?
Any actor of color, yes.
Oh, exactly.
Or woman.
What was it then like for you on a daily basis, just to look around? Did it feel
Great. Fantastic, hopeful, inspiring, satisfying. Yeah, all of that. All of that. You know, it's again, it's this storytelling is to try and shake up the framework and like of even trying to understand the water that we're all swimming in that we can't even see. It's like, how do I know? I know a lot of people who start watching the show and then have to Google the war in Vietnam. You know what I mean? And it's like, fine, do it.
Yeah.
Fine, do it. Remind yourself what happened, and then think about, why do I know what I know? And is it all through a bunch of movies through the 80s?
Yes.
Or when that big chunk of movies that kind of happened? Is it through that? And what's that perspective? And it's like, I remember having this conversation, again, this is going back to episode 1, The Fall of Saigon, and having this conversation with Director Park that there is a scattering when they're going to the U.S. Embassy. There's a scattering of background artists who are all Vietnamese, and scattering. And he was saying, Director Park was saying, he goes, usually you only see Vietnamese people in that situation. When you're above them, right? You're above them, and it's a scattering, he goes, of like ants, or he said actually a harder word, like vermin, like you see a scattering. That's the only perspective. But in that episode, then you go into you go into the bus.
With them.
You go into the bus and you're only with them. And so everything is from their point of view. So something like that, it's like, oh, look, my images that I've known, let's just say from films and about the war in Vietnam, Vietnamese people are only the background people who are being scattered around everywhere. Right? You're only keeping a certain perspective. Like how important that I feel, like not in any kind, but like just a basic humanity, like not for the good of humanity, but like be interesting for God's sakes. Be fuller, be more, and just more of honestly the truthful nature of what the full history is, not only one perspective.
And Don, I read something, it might have been an interview with you, or I don't think it was review, I think it was an interview, that talked about the connection that I hadn't thought about of going full Peter Sellers with Robert's characters, allowing you to have even more authenticity and breadth of characters when you look at the Vietnamese characters in the series. What's the push and pull there from your mind that one would have an effect on the other?
I don't think it was an interview with me because it's a good point. It's very interesting, and I don't think I was quite that interesting ever. No. I mean, I think it's totally true that the tone is really. I mean, it's tough because it's real events. As Walt was saying, it happened to real people. We have to honor the history and the people that experienced that. But at the same time, talking with Viet, the author, he said that there was this pleasure in writing the book, and there's entertainment, and there's a line in the book I was thinking where he says at the re-education camp, the commandant says, "You haven't learned yet that it's about style. Re-education is about style, not just content." Part of the captain's problem is his pleasure in storytelling. He can't resist a good story, and part of it is the performance. And Robert sort of liberated us with that sort of storytelling element. It's sort of the pleasure, and allowed people to see it's not just dry history, you know, like his ultimately sort of liberation is the fact that he can't help but tell a good story. You know what I mean? That's what keeps him from being a sort of doctrinaire communist in the end. He sees the humanity, and so we wanted that kind of energy and the sort of wit is the word I often use as a contrast to the sort of trauma and the sort of.
But you can't right the wrongs, but you can fix the song a little bit. So whereas all these super gifted Asian artists who were de-dimensionalized in Western culture, whether I did it consciously or not, I purposely came in, particularly after Oppenheimer, where I was just thrashed. I came in, I was like, I'm here to party. And I intend to do as many two-dimensional performances as I can. And then I think the cast started picking up on it and go, oh, great, motherfucker. We're multi-dimensional. You stay right there in that hole that subintentionally or otherwise, you fucking put us in for 100 years.
No, I'm totally interested because you know, a lot of Robert's characters held a certain type of satire.
Yes.
Right. So sometimes, like, you know, in one scene, the congressman's there doing his congressman thing, and all of us are in a completely different film. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know,
a good
but
way.
I'm in a naturalistic film, right? And then there's a satire, but that's the dynamic of it, right? And again, going back to
it's sort of what makes the book brave. It's sort of audacious in the book that it goes on these sort of comic twists, like the movie stuff, the whole episode 4. And you can't believe that he's going there because you've just seen Bond's child die, things like that. But that's what makes the book audacious. And I think it was really important for us that we kept that alive, you know, kept that contrast alive, because that's the sort of absurdity that comes with the tragedy of war. You know,
People in the audience who have seen the whole series will know what I'm talking about. But when I watched it, if I thought there was one scene that was probably, like, in my imagination, the highest degree of difficulty for you, especially as someone, you know, carrying the show for a first time, and it was in the middle of the love scene where all of a sudden you start talking to the camera. What was it like for you? What was it like for you to read that and know that you were going to have to do it? And then
It was like Ferris Bueller gets laid.
Which is actually my research. No, but oh man, I was dreading that for a while. Not because of Sandra.
Why would you dread that?
Not because I had to.
Very supportive.
No, you were honestly, Sandra. You made it so much more easier for me to just, relax. But it was just more because I'm turning to the camera and I'm delivering this monologue in Vietnamese, really, and delivering a monologue in that situation is hard enough, but I felt like we just got along really well, really quickly, and all of my worries were put aside. And then, to be honest, you know, you did a lot of the work. I just had to turn to the camera and deliver the monologue. But for a while, I was really dreading the doing the monologue bit and having to do that whole sequence of events. But you were really supportive of me, and to be honest, the crew were really supportive of me. This was like the 6th week of shooting as well.
Oh wow! How long was the shoot, Don?
I loved those scenes, and I remember watching, and I was so excited that they had chemistry too. So.
Yeah.
But the length of our
How long
shoot.
was the shoot?
Oh,
16?
You know, because you were there every day.
yeah, but it's hard
every day.
because of the
I think
Vietnam.
it was 16 or 20.
Something like
over
that. Yeah,
16 or
like
20.
17, I think, in the end.
Weeks.
Yeah.
17 weeks. Oh my God.
I mean, I say 6 months, just 'cause
6 months.
Okay.
because that's what I remember.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There was a bit of travel, so it's a bit hard to calculate.
I'm sure. Sandra, I also want to ask you about the scene, which I think, correct me, Don, I think was in the episode they just saw, the kitchen scene, where you now know. You've now figured
The
it out.
last
Six.
It's 6.
It's 6,
It's
yeah.
6.
It's all right. You didn't
Yeah.
see it, but 6.
It's 6. It's the
in
second
six.
to last.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And that scene to me, it's just,
Yeah.
I was so impressed with what you did. The intensity just got ratcheted up. Was that a scene that you kind of had marked in the script or on your calendar, like, got to really bring the A game on this day?
Dude, I do that every day. I'm sorry.
God, what a great idea.
No, but it's like, I think you need to approach it not the same way because you're doing things slightly technically different. But it's also like at that point, we were very well into it. You know, Hoa and I were very much into it, and I knew what I wanted to work on. Do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of work that one needs to do prior to that you come filled and you come open and ready to find the dynamic that is going to show up, let's just say.
I mean, we talked
But,
about
yeah.
that scene a lot.
We
in
did,
advance.
we talked a lot.
In advance of the, like,
Yeah, because it's also like that I mean, I will say, that scene is really well written. So there you go.
is.
It's really well written because she is not talking. She is not using the words to say what she's really saying. And so there's a lot of mystery on whether the captain is understanding Sophia or not. So bravo, honey. Well written.
well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you have great actors, you got to give them stuff to work with.
Absolutely. Let me end with one last thing. Obviously, this is a show about Vietnam. It's about war. It's also about America. And I took note of the line, I was fascinated and repulsed. That's what it means to love America.
Yeah.
Right? And
It's amazing how many people quote that line. It's weird.
really, people do.
Yeah. People. I love that line too.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
drives the stake in, right? And it says something that we haven't really thought of, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Nothing exists in a vacuum. What do you think the idea of having this show out now is?
Oh, you mean yes, well,
However you want to respond.
what's that? Sorry. I mean, you always think it's like 50 years of the Vietnam War. And of course you think about the lessons that weren't learned in American foreign policy that everyone said at the time everything was going to change. It didn't seem to change. And now it does seem people are taking it seriously, for better or for worse. I don't know. Of course, you think about wars now and how people could look at the other side. The main message of the show is to look at the other side and to put yourself in their position, realize that side also has complexity. And so that's sort of, and to resist the dogma and the sort of, it's about questioning your own ideology and saying maybe there's more to this than I've been told. The captain feels that his duality is a curse at the beginning, and then after what he goes through and the sort of ice plunge that he takes thanks to his friend in this episode, he comes out thinking that maybe his duality is his salvation, and he can see the humanity and he can save his friends. And so, I mean, I guess that's sort of the message I would say about the sort of the repulsive and fascinating side of it. I do feel that that's the way the world perceives America now,
Maybe that's why that line, and people are taking notice of it.
And you shouldn't be afraid to look at it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's it. I mean, if you're not looking at it, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Robert, one last thing. I know it's weird because he's like sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
But we.
Do you like Hoa?
I'm gonna do a little spin on it, which is, thinking back to that moment, when you first did your scene together. Let's just have fun. What was it then like for you to see this young man carry this series on his shoulders after that?
Well, it was incredible. And, to our many thesps out there, if you're fortunate, you wind up at these kind of seminal, possibly life-changing moments where it gets down to the wire. And, I've experienced those terrible, crushing disappointments. And then the only thing scarier than wondering if it's ever going to happen is when it does. And
It's true.
so I got to watch someone who has great character and it's just nice when huge, cool stuff happens to people that aren't assholes. And you're just such a good dude.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I was supported by just probably one of the best experiences of my life, with people from the crew all the way to the creatives, to the cast, all the way to the top, to producers and creatives. Just people who were masters of their craft, diligent in the ways that they wanted to tell this story, and just supportive and generous to not just me, but everybody around them. And, like Robert and Sandra, you kind of led that, so I was only emulating what I was being received. And Don, you were as well, obviously.
No, I will say
By the
that.
way,
Yeah.
Hoa has a great stylist now. I would just also say that I had this great thing where I watched twice. I watched Cillian do Oppenheimer, and I was like, all I saw was this guy sacrifice. And then I went right into this, and I was like, oh, he's doing what Cillian just did.
Oh, wow.
He just
I'm not
did
killing
the
that.
same- Okay, but it was all the same moves. It's you guys going out to dinner? I'm not. You guys having a fun weekend? I'm not, and I don't intend to. I'll have fun on set, and I'll try to stay alive, and I'll try to keep in touch with my close friends so I don't get inhuman about it.
Yeah.
But I'm basically doing time and sacrificing so that the result that you guys just witnessed can be full.
Yes. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I've been asked to ask you all just to keep them on schedule, if you'll let our special guests leave the stage before getting up. But I want to congratulate and thank Hoa Xuande, Robert Downey Jr., Sandra Oh, Don McKellar. Thank you.